Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about the 4 easy steps that are required to master your mind. Why would anyone want to even consider mastering your mind? What's that all about? Well, if you think about it, your mind is the place that your entire life is created. I mean, it's of course the place where you see how your brain processes all the signals and all the information coming in from the world around you, right? But it's also the place that creates all the reactions that your mind has to all the things coming in from the world around you, all of your anger, all of your sadness, all of your fear, all of your worries and regrets, but all of your happiness is created from within your mind when special little buttons are pressed that your mind has created for you to feel and experience all the things that you wind up experiencing as a human being. Now, the cool thing is, a lot of these variables that are created within your mind are controlled by you, whether you knew it or not. And so it's a great thing to get into your mind and understand what those things are that create your happiness and that can turn down things like your fear and your sadness and your anger and your worry and your regret in life. So let's get to the 4 easy steps that are required to master our human mind. The 4 easy steps that are required are the same 4 steps that we use to master anything. And they're the steps that are outlined in the adult learning model. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the adult learning model, it's really simple to explain. It goes from 4 different levels of learning that you go through to master anything. And the first level is a level of unconscious incompetence. It's where we all start in life of we don't even know what we don't know. We don't know the thing that we need to understand. We don't know the details of all the things that are required to learn something. And so we start to learn about that thing. And then that's process takes us into the next step of conscious incompetence. It's like, okay, well, I still don't know how to do what I want to do, but at the same time, at least I know the things that I need to learn to be able to move toward a path of mastery on whatever it is that I want to learn, right? Then, after learning what we need to know, we start practicing what we've learned, and we move into a space of conscious competence. Now, conscious competence is that place where we understand and we have a little bit of an ability to do whatever it is we want to do, be it working crossword puzzles or playing the piano or shooting a basketball or playing baseball or whatever it is that you want to do. You know how to do it, but you really have to think about it. You really have to remember, oh yeah, I need to move my fingers in this certain way on the piano, or I need to think about things a different way in my mind to be able to gain control over the emotional reaction that I'm having at the moment, or whatever it is. And at the point of you practicing conscious competence, you start to build this thing called plasticity in your mind. And that's where we move into level 4. Level 4 of the adult learning model is unconscious competence, where you simply know it lights out. You don't have to think about how to shoot the basketball. You don't have to think about how to play that piece of music on the piano. You don't have to think about how to downregulate your negative emotions. It starts happening for you from an unconscious perspective. Your subconscious mind starts taking over, and you really do slip into that place of mastery. This is the place where the Tiger Woods lives in golf, or the Michael Jordan or LeBron James lives in basketball, where they simply know their craft so well that they kind of just turn their mind off, and their subconscious mind, their muscle memory, so to speak, takes over and allows them to operate at a level much higher and at a level that they don't have to think about what they're doing. And that is plasticity at work. Our brain used to be thought of as this place of, never changed, never grew new neurons, never reallocated resources, and boy, let's hope you get a good one. Here's your roll at the dice. Come on, 7, let's get a good brain. Well, we now know that to be false. And just like when you go to the gym and you work out and you get your muscles bigger, or you stop working out and your muscles get smaller, the same thing happens in your mind and your brain, where how you use your brain will then determine the form and function of how your brain and thus subconscious activity responds to your everyday existence. And so if you're practiced at being a happier person, if you're practiced at turning down your fear and your anger and your sadness, etc., that starts happening on a subconscious level, okay? So your step in this process of unconscious incompetence is to then learn what it is that you can do with your mind to be able to master your mind. We're talking about taking your mind's ability, and you have an 800-pound gorilla in your mind that's just huge and powerful and can do anything. It literally is the most effective tool you have in the universe to make an awesome life for yourself. Well, you take that mind and you turn it in on itself to reform itself. And so our level of shifting from our unconscious incompetence to a conscious incompetence is picking up a book and reading some information about how your mind works, understanding how your emotional processing work, which you don't know at this point is the lion's share of your mind and brain's processing. You need to understand how the complex machine works so as to be able to understand what buttons to press and what dials to turn and what levers you can pull to change things in your mind to create a different output within your mind. And so I've created a couple of good books that you can read. I'm also writing some other books on the human mind, and we're doing some other projects that connected with video and connected with online learning, etc. So you can check those out. But one of the big books that I wrote is called Mind Hacking Happiness. You can find links here to get free copies on the site. You can get it from Amazon, ships for free, e-copies really cheap. Check it out. That will bring you from your unconscious incompetence into a conscious incompetence. At least you'll understand what it is that you're missing. Now, the cool thing is, by the time you get to the end of the red book, Mind Hacking Happiness, you then start to automatically move into a conscious competence, because the tools are there in the book to be able to get you from your unconscious incompetence all the way through your conscious incompetence into your conscious competence, where you can start using this stuff by the end of the book to be able to change the way your mind works and change how your life works, which is awesome. It's very rare that you have an opportunity to read a book and then be able to use the disciplines within that book. Like, you go to read a book about baseball, you go to read a book about basketball, you go to read a book about how to do crossword puzzles, you're still faced with the step of then having to go somewhere and figure out how to do something and work on the mechanics of your swing or the form of your shot or your vocabulary and what that means in building up an ability to do crossword puzzles or whatever it is. The same is not true of your human mind, because as you read through the book, you start to see your mind in operation as you're reading how your mind works in the book. It's really cool. Now, the neat thing that happens there is that there's a special button that's pressed that helps you get better at taking control of your mind, and it's called the Name It, Tame It circuits within your brain. Now, they discovered this in 2007. Matt Lieberman did a study where he figured out that putting a cognitive process to your emotional processing then turns down your emotional processing. So if you're having struggles with that inner voice that's creating doubt or creating negativity for you, or you have anger issues, or you have sadness issues, or your bouts with depression, or you have a fear about things, about a paralysis that may be stopping you from taking action to make your life awesome, you can actually turn those things off. It's like a physiological reaction where you learn how your mind works and how your emotions work, and you learn how to put a lens on your emotion, and then that trips a little magic button in your brain that turns that stuff off for you. It's like a sneeze. You can't even stop it from happening, which gets all of that unresolved processing out of the way. It opens up the ability for you to increase intelligence and your cognitive processing. Your prefrontal cortex is firing on all cylinders, because one of the things that your emotional brain does and your reptilian portion of your brain is it shuts off your thinking brain when things are starting to go awry, or things are you're starting to feel stressed, things like that. Your thinking brain shuts off, which is awesome. 150 years ago, when the threat of whatever it was coming out of the woods turned your thinking brain off and shunted all the energy to your legs so you could run, that's great. But in today's world, where we live in cubicles and we have to think our way out of problems, not such a good physiological response anymore. So you need to be able to step in and press that button to say, hey, I'm going to turn off this negative processing so I can get my thinking brain back, so we can think through this problem and get beyond whatever it is that I'm reacting to, right? And at that point, then the plasticity starts to build. After you start using your conscious competence on how to manage your emotional reactions, how to manage your internal thinking, how to look at things differently, then your brain starts to change in form and function and rewire itself to help you get into an unconscious competence where your anger is automatically turned down. Your sadness is automatically turned down. Your fear is automatically turned down. Your worry and regret kind of just dissolve. Your stress starts to dissolve away. And my brain was scanned and showed zero stress. So I'm a living example of this. And then you start turning your happiness up. And once you start turning your happiness up more and more, it becomes an unconscious competence where you're happy all the time. And so that's the process that we follow here in this mind-hacking happiness path of being able to rewire your brain for fewer negative emotional responses, fewer negativity in your life, period, to change your reactivity, to change your whole perception of the world en masse, and rewire it in a way to where then it becomes a subconscious process that you're happier all the time. And now, if you didn't understand the science of happiness, it's not that a better job and more income brings you happiness. It's the opposite. Happiness brings you a better job and more income. It's not that wonderful kids bring you happiness. It's that happiness brings you wonderful kids and the ability to be a better parent. It's not that a great relationship brings you happiness. It's that happiness brings you better relationships. This process can and will change your life. And the power of this stuff is unbelievable. There's a story of a friend of mine who's a new friend who came into my life after she read my book, and she reported herself to be the poster child for alcoholism. And understand, this book is not about alcoholism, right? This book is not about addictions, but it's about how your mind works and how to get it in there and understand why your mind does what it does and be able to change what your mind does to change your life. Well, she had a problem with alcoholism to the point that she said she was drinking all day, every day. And one night she had gone out with some friends and drank a little too much and came home and kind of passed out and then wound up in the hospital. And the doctor said she was one drink from death and may have not survived the ambulance ride to the hospital. And wound up in a traumatic brain injury ward of a neuroscience hospital where she was in a coma for a couple of weeks and then had to go through rehabilitation at that point because she couldn't tie her shoes while sober. She couldn't walk without staggering while sober because of the damage that she had caused in her brain thanks to the chronic alcohol being dumped into her system. And she said that she was so gripped by addiction that she told me this story. She's like, look, my husband took us home. He's unpacking the bags in the driveway. I'm inside in the kitchen pouring myself a glass of wine to take the edge off. So she said, I understand how much addiction can grip you. Well, she took the contents of the Mind Hacking Happiness Red book, went into her mind, figured out what the pain was. And she said, now I have a better understanding of what addiction, how it works in mass. It's not really the substance. It's the underlying emotional pain that you're trying to numb. It's the thing that you're trying to bury. It's the thing that you're trying to run from. She got within her own mind, changed the variables that were causing her pain, and then decided that she was no longer going to be an alcoholic and no longer needed the alcohol, and did this without a 12-step program. In fact, she went afterwards, sat down with a glass of wine and a journal, and drank the glass of wine, took the drink that Alcoholics Anonymous says you can never take, that you're always going to be an addict. And she wrote down her psychological effects, she wrote down her physical effects, she wrote down how it tasted, all of her experiential time with that wine, and decided, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. I don't need this to numb the emotional pain that I have gone inside myself to cure or to heal, and she didn't need the substance anymore. And so she kind of broke the mold with the ability to take her own mind into her hands and change it to get a different output associated with that. And this is just one of the positive stories that we're getting from the people who are early readers of this book and getting into this program. Couple of Navy SEALs that I'm now doing a podcast with, Ben and Doug, came to me and said, wow, this is the coolest mind training book on the planet, and we've already been through the best mind training that the United States Special Operations Command and intelligence services have to provide, and your lockdown on how the emotions process works and how to take control of that and how to change your perception on things is just unparalleled. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. The most elite operators in the world who go through the most intense training on emotions management and the ability to handle difficult and stressful situations are coming to me saying, hey, this is better than the best training we've ever had. Well, that's kind of a cool little success story as well. So all that to say this, if you're interested in taking control of your mind, if you're interested in taking control of your life and changing how you see things in the world and changing how you react to things in the world and changing what your mind gives you, because a lot of times our own minds can be our worst enemy, right? It's the thing that creates the biggest roadblocks for us. It's the thing that is our biggest resistor of change. If you can get in and change the variables, and there's only 2 easy to understand variables that you need to mess with. If you can get in there and change the variables that your mind uses to create all of its reactions to everything that you perceive in life, that's a game changer. And it will rewrite your life en masse. I promise. I hope this message finds you well. I hope you love checking out our stuff connected with mind hacking happiness. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Peace.